Hi everyone. Um, so welcome to Pathways. A little bit about it. It's a speaker series that's devoted to young professionals who've been able to combine their interests with experience to carve out a space for themselves in a changing media and communications landscape. So a little bit about me. I'm going to be your moderator this evening, and I'm a second year. I'm a communications and graphic design major with a minor in marketing and one in sports media and communications. I'm from Brazil and actually have only lived there for 6 years of my life. I actually lived in Switzerland, Argentina, and Mexico. But before we actually get started, I just wanted to review some of the Zoom etiquettes. So all participants are going to be muted for this event and you guys will not be able to share your screen. Also, this event is going to be recorded. Well, it is being recorded. And we're going to be using the chat box. So for any questions or comments that you guys have, please write it down. And later on in the Q&A, we will answer them. And if you actually want to speak it or say anything out loud, just say request to speak or RTS for short. So our panelists for this speaker series are Blair Adour and Carrie Mack. So Blair Adour actually received her undergraduate degree at the State University of Oswego. And then she went on to get her master's in music business at New York University. So currently, right now, she's a coordinator for SAD Summer Festival, and she works at a music agency based out of New York. Additionally, we have Carrie Mack, who is a New York-based post-producer, and after graduating with a degree in journalism and creative writing, she decided to forgo her plan of studying law and then get into working with independent film. She has had projects at Sundance, SXSW, Tribeca, Venice Biennale, Copenhagen International Documentary Festival, and more. So I just wanted to say thank you guys for being here from all of us. And as a moderator, I'll be asking questions to both of you guys. And then at the end, we're going to have some time for the Q&A, as I previously said. And those questions are either questions that already have been sent in or questions that people have throughout. So let's get on to the questions. So I would want to start with Blair, if that's all good with you.
Sounds good.
Nice. So could you talk a little bit about what your major was as an undergraduate and how you first started to get involved in your field?
Yeah, so I went into Oswego. I wanted to be in media. I wasn't really sure exactly what path I wanted to go down, so I just decided to go with broadcasting, communications. And while I was doing that, I realized there was an audio engineering minor, and I had no idea it existed at the time when I started. So my sophomore year, I decided to take that minor on.
Yeah.
And that was really where I realized that music was the path I wanted to go down. I didn't really know specifically what yet. I was really into the audio engineering minor and I loved the recording aspect. And so I think that was kind of where I started to really wrap my head around like, okay, so now I've understood what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Now I need to try to figure out what does this look like within a job. So that was kind of my journey at Oswego when I was there.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like in the arts world, it's so hard to actually picture it and be like, okay, what am I gonna do now?
Yeah, there's like so many different paths you can go down. And I think like as you're entering college, you're like, I was kind of a deer in headlights. I was like, well, I don't know what to do. I just think I want to do broadcasting or media. And I was like, okay, well, I don't even know what that means. So it was nice to kind of stumble upon that minor to kind of like help me like maneuver my way through that.
Yeah, I love that. So after you actually got into more of the music, field, how do you actually decide after you graduated to pursue a master's?
That was a wild ride. So I graduated in 2013, and from my undergrad, I had a couple jobs. I interned in New York City as an audio engineer for musicals, and I did a show off Broadway, and I did a little bit of work on the Book of Mormon, and loved it. Thought it was the best thing that had ever happened to me until the guy that was mentoring me had a pretty real conversation with me. And he was like, hey, I want you to know that this industry is great, but it's 16-hour days all the time. You don't know when your next paycheck's coming. And being a female in this industry is really hard. And I definitely started to see that. Like, I really had to fight for my space in any of the rooms I was in during that time. And I was very grateful for that conversation, because it definitely made me take a step back and be like, okay, do I want to fight that hard for so long? And I didn't. So I was from Syracuse. So I went back to Syracuse after my time there. There is a point to all of this, bear with me.
No worries.
So I started working at the local affiliate, the NBC local affiliate in Syracuse, selling TV ads. It was fine. I was like, I guess this will do. I didn't really know what I wanted. I felt really lost and confused. And I was like, let's give this a go. I was there for a couple of years, and then I was like, okay, I'm going to pivot. And I went into SEO, which kind of came out of nowhere, and I liked it. I thought it was cool, but it still wasn't really fulfilling in any way.
Yeah.
And while I was in Syracuse, I used to be a part of like booking like local like pop punk shows and like hardcore shows. And so I kind of started getting back into that culture while I was there, which sparked that interest again in music.
Yeah.
So it was during that time when I was feeling unfulfilled, but also realizing my passion for music. And I literally broke down one day, talked to my boss at the time, and was like, I don't know what to do. I'm miserable. And I know I want to do something with music. And he was like, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I think I need to go to grad school. And he was like, okay, go. And literally the next day, I got all my documents for NYU. I figured out what I needed to do. I started preparing for the test. And it felt like I like blacked out for several months and just like did it. I like figured it out. I was like making it work. And then I randomly got a note in the mail. I really didn't think I was going to get in. They accept like 30 people. I was like, there's no way. And I got accepted. And so that was the journey, that long-winded story of how I went to NYU. And that journey was really hard, I think, for me, like mentally and emotionally, but I'm so grateful that I did all of that to like finally get to that point to like kind of kickstart where I am now.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes going back to school, it helps set kind of like your mind straight. You're like, okay, I still have a lot of time and I still have a lot of possibilities within my field.
Exactly. And I think like I kind of felt weird, like not being someone who went to undergrad and then immediately went in to get my master's, because I was kind of like the older person in the group. I mean, it was only a few years, but it still was like this kind of like weird feeling that I had doing it. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't change it for the world. And I always wanted to get my master's. I just never really thought it would be that soon in my life.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's great that you did that.
yeah, I'm glad I did.
Yeah. And then also relating back to when you're at Syracuse and you're talking about how you're working with different, styles of music and everything, it kind of made me think about the Sad Summer Festival. I just wanted to ask you to talk a bit about the origins of that and if there was a moment or an event that was kind of like an inspiration for it.
Yeah, totally. So like I had kind of mentioned, I grew up in like the scene. So if people aren't like necessarily familiar with like that term, it's like pop punk and hardcore music, like that kind of vibe. And so I grew up going to shows and putting on shows, and this festival kind of came about because Vans Warped Tour was ending. And Vans Warped Tour caters to that genre of music, that like pop punk and alternative and hardcore music. And we knew that was ending. And we all kind of like the people I work with, we were like, okay, there's going to be a void, like something needs to fill that space. Like Vans Warped Tour was so known for the community it built, and like, you would go to this festival and it was this weird, awesome feeling that you would have, and I don't know, it was like the best thing ever. I went for like 10 years in a row and I like loved it with like everything inside of me. I loved it. So we knew that was ending, and we're like, okay, like maybe there's something we can do. The people I worked with worked in like the like alternative scene, the like pop punk scene, and we're like, okay, like I think we're the people that can figure this out. Like, we're hip and cool, even though we're like old people, but so that's kind of where Sad Summer came from, was this like, how do we develop something that's not Van's Warped Tour, because that is like something special and unique, and like it feels like we're ripping something off if we try to be like, we want to replicate that. That's just was like cheesy. So we're like, okay, like let's think like, what can we do? And that was kind of where the idea came from. And as we started like talking about like, okay, what does this look like? We realized that like Van's Warped Tour had like several different stages. And we're like, we just starting off, there was no way that we could do several different stages. That is like, I couldn't even wrap my head around trying to make that work. So that it kind of started with like this one stage concept. But that is kind of where Sad Summer came from. Was trying to like, give something to the scene, because definitely people would be missing Warped Tour because it was such a big deal to so many people.
Yeah, so it's like grabbing something that you all loved and taking it, a piece of it, and then adapting it to like a different, era. Into what it is now.
Yeah, and like there was always this like I mentioned, there's a sense of like community with like a lot of like the scene, and like you go to shows and there's always this like weird feeling of like community. And I think that was like a really important thing for us to hold on to, was like, how do we make this new festival feel like people are a part of it? And that's not this just like, you go to a show, you see the bands and like, that's it. Like, how do we make people feel connected to this festival in some way?
Exactly. And then want to come back like you did for 10 years.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Too long.
Yeah. Also, I noticed that Sad Summer Festival, they support a few nonprofits. And I was just actually curious about, how those specific ones get chosen, like.
Yeah. So it was the first year last year was the first year we had the festival. And when we were talking about, what do we want? Like, we want this to be a statement, right? Like, we don't want it to just be this like cold, dry, like we're going to throw up an Instagram and we're going to just post about the bands that are playing and kind of call it a day. It wasn't like the people involved that I work with, it wasn't true to who we are as people. And we were like, okay, we got to do something else. Like, it can't just be this weird thing. So we started talking about bringing in like this nonprofit aspect, but we didn't want it to be this like, I think sometimes like concerts and maybe even like tours themselves will just like tack on a nonprofit and it kind of feels phony. And that was like really important to us to like not have that be the case, because it really meant a lot to us. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure out like, okay, like Warped Tour was really known for having like nonprofits at all of the shows, and that was like a big deal and meant a lot to people. And like, even when I was like going to shows in Syracuse, like there would be like food drives and like coat drives at shows. So there's always been this like aspect of like helping the community. So we kept wrapping our heads around that. And then we thought the best thing to do is like, we worked with like Headcount is a good one that like was like a national nonprofit that like was kind of around for a lot of the dates last year, but also with every show that we did, because we travel around the United States. I don't think I specified that earlier, but it's a tour that travels around the States. And in each city, we chose a different nonprofit that was local there. And we tried our best to do a lot of research to figure out like, like what the nonprofits were, because we obviously weren't familiar. Like, we don't live in Atlanta or we don't live in San Francisco or what have you. So we reached out to them and tried to have a conversation, be like, and ask them like, do you even want to be a part of this? Like, so we tried to like really be thoughtful about that and not just like throw things at it and be like, well, now we have nonprofits. And this year the difference was we had like a survey type thing on the website, and people could submit nonprofits and like tell us why they were important to them. And like, we kind of like aggregated all of that, and like we're still kind of sifting through all of that information we got, because a lot of people actually send in like organizations that were important to them. So that was really cool.
Yeah, that's really nice. I feel like also when they send in something, it just shows that they also, they want to share that with everyone else. It's not like, they want to get that exposure as well for them, and they're interested in it.
Exactly, because like that was important too, to like make sure that they actually like wanted to be there.
That I feel like it's a really, I love that you guys do that. I think it's really important. And then also, I mean, with the festival as well, with everything that happened this past year with the pandemic, I was really interested into like what the experience was, having to reorganize it and having to reschedule it, and just, I know that it must have been crazy, confusing and everything, but I was just wondering about what you thought of it.
Yeah, I'll kind of like, if it's okay with you, I'll bring in kind of like the agency stuff too, because I think it kind of is like in tandem, if that's cool. It was really scary. And I think like, I mean, obviously all of us were scared. It was weird. There was like this turning point where artists kind of started turning to us and asking us like, oh, like when are shows coming back? And that
Yeah.
was like this weird feeling of like, we didn't know.
Yeah.
So it was like really hard to have those conversations and like tell the artists like, we don't know. We wish so badly we had a crystal ball to be like, hey, like we think in the fall you'll be good to go, so they
Hmm.
can plan on like knowing when they can have money like coming in. And so it really made it this like weird situation. Like specifically with Sad Summer, it's a summer festival, so it's like it's hard to try to wrap your head around like what's the right decision. And
Yeah.
I can't even tell you how many calls and meetings we have where we're like, how do we do this safely? When's the right time to do this?
Hmm.
And how do we go about doing this? And also like having to communicate with fans,
Yeah.
because leaving them in the dark isn't fair. So it's
Hmm.
like there's all of these aspects of like, okay, when are tours coming back? When do we think they're coming back? How do we talk to fans so they don't think that we're ignoring them or putting them in weird positions? Because like tickets are still on sale, and we want them to trust us.
Yeah.
So it's still this like weird like situation where we get on these calls and we're like, okay, like what do we think's going to happen? And we all just kind of stare at each other and we're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that's really hard because I think like, like working with like agents and managers, it's like we all like need to know the answers. We got to have like a sketch. We got to know what's going on. We plan on, years in advance. So
Yeah.
having to just like guess and like week to week being like, I think we're okay. I think we're okay. And the next week being like, I think this is going to blow up in our face.
Yeah.
So that's like, it really is like just this constant sitting there being like, I don't have the answers. And that's really, really hard.
Yeah, it must be hard to, just it's such a fine line, as you were saying, between everything. How do you balance doing all that, but at the same time, keeping that confidence that everyone has in you? And
Yeah.
I can't even, properly imagine all of that.
It's tough. And it
Yeah,
makes us really sad because we just want to have the answer.
I know. But tying in with about the agency, more or less, before everything with COVID, what was your day to day, there?
Yeah, it's definitely agency life is like when I started working at an agency, people were like, it's intense, it's a lot. And I was like, I got it. I'm like, it's fine. It's a wild ride in a really good way.
Yeah.
It's like every day, I feel like everyone says this and it's every day is different. But some of the things that like I was responsible for was like planning marketing for tours and making sure they were launched properly. So it was like managing that, managing talking to the local promoters for each tour to make sure they had like the right assets and that their ticket links were correct. And it's a lot of the like nitty gritty stuff, like door times are right. It's like all those little things, like those like mechanical things. So it was like managing all of that, helping route new tours and trying to figure out what makes sense for the artist for them to go out on tour, talking to the label to see if there's any new like releases happening so we can work in tandem, because that's
Mhm.
also really important to try to like plan a tour when other things are happening, because
Yeah.
then it's more exciting, people care a little bit more, and then it's not just this like, oh, they put up a tour when no music is out or nothing's happening. So
Yeah, of
there's a lot
course.
of like planning behind that. And then there's also this aspect of like maintenance of the tours like once they go up. So it's like I have to help manage the like marketing of like, okay, like if this market, like let's say like Atlanta isn't doing so hot, it's like how do we
Mhm.
like re-engage that audience and that market? Like what can we do marketing wise with the local promoter? And it's constantly having these conversations about marketing throughout the entire process, even to like the day of the show,
Yeah.
and contracting. It's trying to get out all the contracts for all the shows individually. A lot of meetings. There's a lot of meetings just with so many different people. It's like that planning process is so important, because it's like if you don't get it right, like it's not going to work and the tour is not going to be successful. And it's also like finding new artists and like trying to figure out like, okay, well, how do we develop this new artist if we start working with them, and trying to, it's very strategic, and there's like a million different things going on at one time. It's like really hard to handle, but yeah, so I guess it's just like the short answer is like a lot of strategic stuff and a lot of marketing, and a lot of planning.
Oh God, yeah, and a lot of meetings as well.
So many.
Oh, that seems fun though. You know, if it's something they enjoy, you're gonna have fun.
It's exciting, and there's literally always something to do. There is never a moment where I'm like, I wonder if there's something I could do. I usually have like 4 pages in my notebooks of things I have to get done. So
that's good. You never run out. I got one more question for you to kind of tie everything together. What advice would you give to students or just people in general that are just starting in this industry?
I think the first thing is to be gentle with yourself. It's really hard to graduate and to try to figure out your path. And especially for me, I don't think I was gentle with myself in terms of like, it's hard, and like you're gonna go down these weird paths and you're gonna end up where you want to be eventually, but it takes some time and it takes some weird turns, and it's okay. And you'll get there, and who knows, like maybe in a year and a half, something happens and I go down another weird path and I end up completely in a different place. And I think that's also something to just kind of ride the wave, and it will be okay. And there's times where it doesn't, but it'll work out. I guess just be gentle and patient with yourself.
I think that's great advice. I mean, even for me, and I'm not joining that industry, but I think it's really good.
It's tough.
Yeah. Well, thank you for answering these questions. Later on, we're going to hear more from you in the Q&A.
Great.
But thank you. I had a good time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so now we're going to be talking to Kerry. Hi. Now I can see you.
Hi. Can you see me? Okay, good.
So I also have a few questions for you.
Yes.
Initially, also starting with undergraduate, what was your path like, you know, from going from your undergraduate study to then going to the field that you're currently in? You know, was film always an interest for you?
Yes and no. Funny enough. I started, I went to school for journalism with the intention of always going to law school. That was always my plan. My father's a lawyer. And I just thought like, yeah, I really wanted to do entertainment law. I thought that was really cool. And my senior year of school, I was taking a sitcom writing class, just kind of like for fun. It fit into my major, and met with this director who was making a web series that summer. And I thought she was just like so enchanting and so interesting. And kind of simultaneously, I started to study for the LSATs. And every time I cracked open my book, I like wanted to smash my head with it. It just was like, there was just something every time I cracked open the book, I was like, this is not for me. Yeah. So I really pivoted fast. It was, like my spring semester senior year, I was like, oh no, I have to find a new path and quick. And so I started just kind of like gently getting into more of this kind of like TV writing, script writing, and befriended this director. And then very quickly after graduating, I worked on set with her and then met people through that. And then that very quickly sent me into like a whole new industry that I really didn't know anything about, and set me on a completely new path. So like kind of to what Blair was just saying, like I really found myself in a place that I never expected to be. But I just listened to my gut and I was like, yeah, I'm still curious and interested in this, and I still feel passionate about it, and I still want to learn more. And I
Mhm.
think because I did not have a background in film at all, it honestly made me work twice as hard coming out of school, because I had no preconceived notions. I knew that I was starting from the very bottom. I knew I had to ask 100 million questions, and make up for like some lost time. So it ended up benefiting me, but film was always something I liked, but I never really thought I would work in it.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing. Those things that you just, end up, it becomes, a part of your identity and you just never expected it. It's the best.
No, no. And I feel, I always felt passionately about it, but I just never thought, I grew up with, my mom's a nurse and my father's a lawyer, and uh, I never really had an education on like the arts. It always felt like working in the arts, you had to be a starving artist. And I didn't know, I had no connections in the industry. So the thought of working in the arts was so foreign to me.
Yeah.
It just seemed impossible. And I also didn't really know, what kind of careers were in the arts. I really didn't know what the possibilities were.
Mhm.
And so once I started to explore it, I was like, oh, you need kind of like business minded people. Or I always thought like, to work in film, or the arts in general, you have to be a starving artist, and I kind of have to give everything to your craft. And the more I worked in the industry, I was like, oh, they actually need pretty organized, kind of type A people to keep everything together. Like I am an asset to the project,
Mhm.
um, creatively, but also logistically. And I had never really considered that before.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. You need both types of people, or, several types of people to make one thing work.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. And it takes a lot of people to make art, especially movies. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but also with all of that, do you think that, that change in your career path, do you think that it heavily like impacted like practically your life? Like do you have to go back a few steps, in terms of like studies and stuff like that?
In terms of studies, no.
Mhm.
Luckily, I kind of could I could kind of apply some of, once I started actually producing, I could apply a lot of my journalistic knowledge, funny enough. And I work with documentaries a lot, and I just have a real passion for docs. And that has been like a really fun place to apply that journalistic knowledge.
Yeah.
Um, so like that's been really nice. But I think more than anything, it just was like a huge slice of humble pie because I just I knew that there was no scenario in which I could say like, I'm not going to do that, or that's not my
Mhm.
job, or that's for the intern. I was like, I am the intern, and I need to be better than all the other interns if I want to, keep working and keep making things. Like I just yeah, I was like, okay, I'm starting from the absolute bottom. And so yeah, a big slice of humble pie was what I got.
Yeah, let's restart.
Yeah, but it ended up being like, genuinely the best thing that could have happened, because uh I had passion for what I was doing, and I was curious and interested, and I, wanted to get out of bed and every day and learn more. Whereas cracking open my LSAT book was like nightmare.
That's amazing. I'm glad that, it really helped you see um everything. But so you're saying that you starting as an intern. When you started off, as an intern, did you think that you wanted to work with post-production, or were you just, starting out in the industry?
So when I first started in the industry, I was PAing, which is is a production assistant.
Mhm.
And that's mostly on set. So I was working on sets, different commercials and short films, like kind of stuff like that. And I was just trying to be a sponge and learn and observe, and even just like the jargon and the lingo, I didn't know. So I was just yeah, just trying to be a sponge, and just helping out with sets. But quickly I realized that I didn't love I didn't love working 12-hour days. I didn't love not knowing when I was going to be home. I didn't love, not knowing what I was having for lunch. You know what I mean? Like I there was like some routine that I realized that I needed.
Yeah.
So then I was able to pivot to post production, and that's much more of like an office job.
Mhm.
Um, Working with like smaller groups of people, it's like much more intimate, and I realized like, oh, this is definitely a much better space for me because it's creative, but I feel like I have, you know, a life that
Yeah, and you can also like pull in some of the other stuff that you learned when you're studying journalism, creative
Yeah,
writing. You got more of that, that written, more structural part as well.
totally. And I learned that the structure was important to me, and so I followed that. I knew that I was going to burn out quickly if I kept trying to work on set, and I also knew that not only would I burn out quickly, but I think that I would kind of like lose my spark and interest. And so that's, some advice that I would give. If something doesn't feel right, like really doesn't feel right, like, explore another option. Like you're not stuck.
Yeah, that's true. You got time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, so when you're, working in with a lot of projects, do you have a specific, style of film or a favorite type of film that you love working with?
I love working with docs. I love, I'm like a documentary nerd. But I'm, lucky enough to work at a company where we do a little bit of everything. So, we work on commercials, short films, feature length films of all sorts. So it's it's really nice for me because it keeps things really fresh. I don't really get bored on projects, and I have both short-term projects always happening and long-term projects. So I can kind of like I feel like I kind of like put them in different filing cabinets of my brain, and it kind of like keeps things interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really love documentaries, and I think that that's just like the journalistic, background in me that really gravitates towards those.
Yeah. Do you have like someone that you look up to in the style of documentaries, like someone that you just love their work?
So many. As I get older, I try to pay attention to more female documentarians. Lauren Greenfield is a big one. She's a photographer, and she has stuff on Netflix that's pretty accessible. She did a doc called like Queen of Versailles, and she's just one example. But I try not to just watch stuff that is like, kind of by just like white guys, like I really try to make a point to
Yeah.
both work with people of color, minorities, and women, and watch that art because I typically find it more interesting and I find it more nuanced. And I also know that those projects are harder to get made, because if you don't have like the money and resources and institutional support behind you, it's really difficult to tell anybody about the art that you've made or even finish the art that you're trying to make. So I really, if I'm ever doing like projects on my own time, it's usually like working with like female filmmakers and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's really good. You got to diversify everything and just see new
It
things.
just makes it way more interesting, and like also like being a female in the industry is so difficult, I think, no matter what industry you're in.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's like it's nice to have like a little built-in support
Mhm.
team network there because we all kind of like have each other's back, and we're like it's tough to be here and you kind of have to fight hard. So it's just like comforting to have that like built-in support.
Yeah, I love that. So, talking about documentaries and, that being one of your favorite styles, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on? Or like, like why would it be your favorite?
Yeah, we have a couple. One is it just came out this year. It's called All I Can Say,
Okay.
and it's a documentary on a man named Shannon Hoon, who was the lead singer of a band called Blind Melon. You guys probably don't know, but they were famous in like the 90s, but you've probably heard their songs though, actually. I just didn't know their name. But the lead singer very tragically passed away in the 90s, and he for about 5 years through the course of like his kind of rise to fame, he obsessively videotaped everything, every part of his day. I mean, every minute detail. And when he so tragically passed, his family didn't really know what to do with all these tapes. It was really unusual at that time to be filming yourself like that. You know, now we have social media and we have our phones in our hands all the time. And so documenting what we're doing is so normal. It's, you know, but for Shannon, it was like kind of distracting to people that he had his camera everywhere and was bringing his camera around, filming like personal, it's like his personal life with people and just hanging around, and people were like, what are you doing? But it basically, they had thousands and thousands of hours of footage, and that his family gave over to a couple artists that they knew through Shannon. And so they cut a movie together, and Shannon is labeled as, or he's given a director credit with a couple of other people, but it took them about 10 years to make the doc because it was a labor of love, and it was just so much footage to kind of like weave this story together. It was really a lot. And so it took a team of people to work for a long time. So that was one of my favorites, because it really just like takes you on such a journey, and like you know, it's such a different take on what life was like back then and how similar it is and how different it is. And it's just a really unique story. And another one that's one of my favorites is coming out hopefully this year. It's premiering at South by Southwest next month, and it's called Not Going Quietly. And I haven't been able to talk about it, and now I can't. So excited. But it's a documentary about a man named Adi Barkan, who was diagnosed with ALS a few years ago, right after having his first child with his wife. And he was a political organizer and kind of just starting his life, and was so tragically diagnosed with ALS. And so it's a kind of about his fight for his life, but also, you know, the rights for people that are sick and disabled in our country. And he goes to Capitol Hill and argues with politicians and confronts them about their policies and their votes on this and that. And he is like, you know, he has to have assistance speaking now and is in a wheelchair. And every day of his life is a fight, but he is like every day still fighting for people who have a difficult time getting healthcare, people who are underserved in our culture and in our country in general. And so he's, you know, it's literally the fight of his life, and it's so good and so like empowering and amazing, and it's so sad and so uplifting and all of the things. So I'm really excited for that one to come out, because I just think he's like one of the most influential people that we don't really hear about all that much.
That's true. I hadn't heard of him until now, and I'm really excited to see that.
Look up Adi Barkan. ADY is how you spell his first name. He's unbelievably smart and courageous and kind and hardworking, and is suffering from this horrible disease and is just trying to be like a father and a husband and a political activist. And he's like doing an incredible job. And it's really, I'm like, oh man, what am I doing? He's accomplishing so much. I got to get on his level.
But you are too. You still have time as well. You're getting there. Talking about this coming out, what is it like to see, you know, the stuff that you've worked on actually screened at festivals? Is it nerve-wracking? Is it exciting? Is it both? I don't know.
It's all of it. It's always nerve-wracking because I I work on the tail end of every project. A lot of projects I don't jump onto until after they've been shot, and sometimes even after they've been edited. Like I'm kind of like one of the last people to jump on a project and like get it out the door. So sometimes like I personally am delivering it to the festival. So when I go to watch it at festivals, it's a lot of chatting with people and schmoozing with people in the industry and going to fun parties. But then when you actually go and sit down and watch your film, I'm always like, oh my God, I hope nothing goes wrong. It feels like I'm giving a performance. It's very nerve wracking, but it's so exciting. And it's, you spend months and sometimes years on a project. So to watch it in an audience with people and hear their reactions and hear when they're laughing or when they're crying, or it's like really indescribable to watch people take in the art that you've helped create is like really, really astounding. And it definitely does not get old. That's for sure. It does not get old.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Just everything, like, everything overpowers, all the emotions kind of just overflow. And
yeah, it's a thing that really caught my eye and captured my attention when I was like pivoting from graduating and really not knowing what the heck I was going to do, to kind of like falling face first into this industry. I really liked that it's like a team sport, and I really liked that. I felt supported by people. I liked that I could support other people. There's no making any sort of moving image by yourself. I mean, it's just, you can't, it really takes a team of people because there's so many intricate aspects to making a film, long, short, whatever it may be. So there's just no possible way one person could do it all. And so I really liked the team aspect of that. And so there's also, when I'm watching a film that I worked on, there's also like, there's a sense of pride for me, but there's such a sense of pride for like hundreds of people, that have had even a small part, gave a note here, helps with this, did this favor, that favor, it's really cool. And it's inspiring to see it on the big screen, and yeah, it's like a big trophy. It's very cool.
Yeah, that happiness just extends, because there's so many people. It just so much more happiness adds on because it's theirs and yours, and
it makes it really worth like seeing, if anytime I see my name in the credits on something, I'm like, oh, we did it. It's done, we did it. Yeah, that's a really fun and exciting part of this industry, and also something that I would say to consider for you guys, if what kind of personality you have, do you want to work with people? Are you or do you work better alone? Like, these are all things you have to consider when you're starting to choose a path, like kind of getting to know yourself and figuring out what your limits are, and where you might fit, and what's challenging and what's not. Like it's all part of the fun. But it's also the stuff that makes it difficult, because you have to do a lot of learning by doing. And it's tough, but I think like asking yourself like the tough questions and just being honest with yourself, like, am I happy? Does this feel fulfilling? Do I feel like I'm learning? Do I feel like I'm being heard? Do I feel like this is sustainable? Like, I think, just starting out on jobs, you're kind of taught to like shush and just do the work. And that's also part of it all too. But, I think having like an inner dialogue and checking in with yourself is huge, because I just was always scared about getting 5 years down the line and being like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. And that's also fine. But it's just like, I think having those kind of conversations as you go makes everything a little bit easier, and makes me better at doing my job, because I'm honest with myself and what's working and what's not. And I can kind of like always recalibrate.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of answered the other question I was going to ask, which was the advice for, people that are starting in the industry.
I can give more advice.
If you want to tell us something.
I think my advice, I mean, I think Blair's advice about being patient was huge. But I think if there was, the main advice that I would give when kind of like jumping into a new career or a career at all is just like ask questions. Ask every single question. And if you feel like you're not allowed to ask questions, like maybe that works for you, maybe it doesn't, I wanted to be a sponge and learn everything, and and have that passion and that kind of like fire under me.
Mhm.
So yeah, ask questions, ask people what their lives are like, and ask people, working in the arts too. People don't often have a lot of work-life balance, and that's really important to me. And I work at a company where that's really important to the people that I work with. And so like we talk about that a lot, how do we balance this? And especially as we all get older and our goals kind of start to change a little bit more, like how do we navigate that? And yeah, I think just ask a million questions is the best advice that I would give to yourself, to others. Just like remain really curious. And I don't think it'll steer you in the wrong direction, like going with your gut and kind of, listen, you just listening to people,
Mhm.
it's always a good option. Helped me a lot.
Well, thank you for that advice. I'll keep that in
Yes.
mind.
Yes.
Well, thank you for answering these questions. I wanted to thank you
Course.
for being here as well. And now we're on to the Q&A section. So we'll be answering questions for both Carrie and Blair. So we already have some questions that were RSVP'd before. So one of them is, what would you change about your college experience? Whoever wants to answer that first.
Honestly, nothing. I think it it was like a weird journey that I took, but I'm very grateful for it because I think I learned a lot about myself
Mhm.
and the kind of person I was. Like something to harp on that Carrie said was like, like what's important to you? Like what kind of person are you? What like that was like the time where I was like, oh, like I don't like being in front of the camera, but I like being behind it. And it's like those little things that I learned along the way, even though they were very uncomfortable.
Make a huge
So
difference. Yeah.
yeah, totally. And I think, yeah, I personally wouldn't change anything, even though it was a weird, strange journey. I wouldn't
I
change
think I
anything.
would have I think I would have talked to more people and asked them, gone to more like career things and asked people what their jobs are like. Cause I mentioned it, but like I really had no idea how the arts worked or functioned. I spent a lot of time in New York City. I went to college here. But I didn't know the mechanics of it. And I think I should have asked more questions. I think I just like was like, oh, I have a set path and I'm gonna do this and I'm not thinking about anybody else. And I think that that was a big mistake because I think I could have like gleaned a lot of really important information that I could have used.
That's true. I feel like once you have kind of like hindsight on it, you're like, oh, I could have done that.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Hindsight's 2020, but that's okay. We do the best we can. College is
Yes,
stressful and
we
hard,
do.
so
Very true. Okay, another one is, how much of an influence did other people and their expectations or reactions to your path affect you?
Woo.
can I take that one?
Go for it.
Oh, my family thought it was crazy. My family thought it was nuts. They were like, good luck. So, but I listened to my gut. I always figured it out. I was like, if I'm going to make bold decisions, then I have to do my research and make sure that I'm going to be able to take care of myself. And like if you're going to take a swing, like you got to have the follow through. So I was like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to figure it out, and I'll let you know if if I'm on fire or anything's really going bad. But yeah, I was like, I think I just felt like I needed to take that risk, and they were kind of like, all right. And it's been 4 or 5 years now, and they're like, okay, I think you figured this out.
Yeah, I kind of had a very similar experience where when I randomly told my parents I was going to grad school, they were like, for music? I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, music business. And they were like, why? I was like, okay. And it felt like this battle that I was like, well, I'm going to be fighting this for a while. And I was like, I just got to do this. I was like, I know this is the right thing to do. And I'm like, I'm going to do it. And
Yeah.
still, it's so funny. Like my dad, he tries so hard to understand like what I do. And he was like, he's trying really hard to understand it. He's like, yeah, like, okay. So it's, yeah.
My parents still don't know like what my job is. Like they're like, so what is a producer? And I'm like, just don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Like I have a paycheck, it's fine. I'm fine.
Like I answer a lot of emails, just that's it.
Got a meeting.
So many emails.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
All right. Another one is, if you could go back in time and give your prior self one piece of advice, what would you say and why?
I feel like I kind of answered that. So I'll stick with my advice about asking more questions, being a little more curious.
Wow. I think the curious thing is really important. And I guess like for me personally, in my personal experience, is to not try to do things that you think other people want you to do, if that makes sense. Like I think sometimes I made decisions like specifically with like jobs where I was like, oh, like I think this is the right thing to do. It's a 9 to 5, like this feels right. Like I think I'm supposed to be doing this. And like I think it will make other people happy. And I wish someone had been like, you don't have to do that.
Yeah.
Like it's okay not to do that. Like that's not right for everyone. So I think that would be it.
Yeah, it's true. I like that one as well. Okay, this next one is for Blair. Having that nonprofit aspect, how did you raise funds and create enough buzz as a coordinator for the festival and manage all the concerts?
Yeah, so it was interesting because we tried really hard, since we picked like local nonprofits, we tried really, really, really hard to just tap into the promoters locally and be like, hey, like you guys know the market, you know this nonprofit, like let's work together. And I think we creatively came up with plans to like locally bring awareness. Like postering seems kind of lame, but like it's very helpful for concerts and festivals. So like we kind of use like postering and flyering and like coffee shops and things like that. It seems so old school, but like it does help. So like we really incorporated nonprofits that way. And there was like a lot of like people were just collecting donations there. Sometimes we had food drives, and we would raise awareness like on our socials, and that was huge. It was like our greatest asset, and people were really responsive to it. We'd usually get like a lot of like DMs of like, oh, like what else can I do? Like, is there more I could do? Which was, we just didn't think people would engage that much with it. So I think like using our socials and just like really tapping into the promoters locally was huge. And people would raise, like the organizations would raise like a decent amount of money while they were there. And I think like we gave them a lot of space, and like they set up tents and like they really like had space there. And like during the festival, there's a lot of downtime. So it was like a great opportunity for them to like talk to people that were at the festival. And so that's kind of that aspect. And then was there a part 2 of like managing?
Yeah.
I'm making that up.
It's and like how do you do, create enough buzz as a coordinator and manage all the concerts? It's kind of like, how do you do both at the same time?
Yeah, so last year was 17 shows, and it was really crazy because we are a bunch of people from the scene. They're scrappy, and we were like, okay, we have no idea what we're doing, but we're gonna figure it out. And we were faking it till we made it. And it was a lot of just like things would come up, we'd be like, okay, we have no idea how to fix this, but here we go. So I think it was just a lot of like working together as a team and just being like, okay, like we have the skills, right? Like our toolbox is set, we got them. Like they're agents, they're managers, like the coordinator, we're like, we got this. We got the base skills. And like that was really it. It was like just like the rocket went and we were just trying to figure it out. So that's kind of the answer of just, we were like, we know we got this. We don't know how, but we're going to figure it out. And we did it. And it was the last show got done. We were all there and we were like, okay, we don't know what happened, but it finished and it happened.
Like we did it.
We did it.
I don't know, but we did
exactly, it. Exactly.
Oh God. Yeah, that's okay. I like that. Okay, so one question. This one's for both of you. I personally have found that I tend to devalue my abilities as an artist, especially a female artist, in response to society's age-old disbelief that people can actually be successful in creative fields. Do you ever critique yourself and your abilities as an artist? And if so, what positive self-talk do you use to reverse these insecurities?
I love this question. And I know Carrie. Also, I want to say Carrie and I are very good friends.
Blair's my
don't
best
think
friend.
we-
So yeah, we know each other very well.
I'm like, oh, we're gonna love this.
Yeah, we're answering in tandem. Oh, that's a tough one. It's a good wait. Could you actually repeat the question? Because I want to make sure I have every
Like,
part
we're
of it.
gonna-
Yeah.
Okay. The actual question part is, do you ever critique yourself and your abilities as an artist? And if so, what positive self-talk do you use to reverse these insecurities?
Okay, so
Ooh.
being an artist is tough. So I work as a producer. So my day-to-day, I would have a tough time calling myself an artist. I feel like I work in the arts, but I also personally like direct and do kind of like side things. So of course I critique myself and my abilities as an artist. I think that's part of being an artist. I didn't even want to call myself an artist for a long time because I felt like I didn't deserve it. And then I was like, oh, all these guys are calling them, they're making like skateboard videos, they're artists. I was like, I'm an artist. Oh, okay. Like I think a lot of it's just like having the confidence to call yourself an artist. If you are making something, you are an artist. You have the right to call yourself that. So yes, but I do doubt myself. Yeah, you doubt yourself all the time. I think every artist thinks that they have no abilities and should quit all the time. I think that's like part of the game. What positive self-talk do I use? I mean, it depends. It depends on what I'm working on, because sometimes I think you do need to kind of like, depending on what you're working on, sometimes I think you kind of do need to just like feel your feelings and like go figure out why you're feeling insecure and why you're feeling less than, and why you're feeling like you cannot be successful. But I think you also have to define what success means for you, because I think like Blair and I were served a very like 90s version of what success means, and it's like white picket fence and two-car garage and all of those things. And as I got older, I was like, I can have it all, but I have to decide what having it all means to me. So I think the positive self-talk is just kind of like, trying to hype myself up and be honest with myself. But I don't necessarily ever want to like get rid of those feelings, those negative feelings either, because I think that like I can put that into my art, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Carrie like hit the nail on the head with a lot of this stuff. And I think it's like both of our industries, you can call me out, Carrie, if I'm not, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but they're very fast paced. We work with a lot of men, and it's hard sometimes. It's hard to like stand your ground and to feel confident in your voice and to be like, no, like I deserve a seat at this table. Like, listen to me. I have things to share.
Yep.
So I think that's like really hard in the arts, especially like at the agency I work at. It's everybody above me, they're guys. And it's hard. And like the women that are in my company, like we'll talk to each other and like try to like support each other, because it's so important to just feel like a small person. And it's hard to like remember that like, no, you have value and you're smart and you know what you're talking about. And to like push through that is really hard. And I think like, this may seem silly, but it's like taking moments throughout the day to just like breathe for a second. Like both of our industries are like so fast paced, and you're going a mile a minute and you get wrapped up in it, and it's just a lot. And I think it's like just taking those moments to just like center yourself and to just be like, hang on, like hang on. And to just regroup. Like that's not necessarily like self-talk necessarily, but I think it's like those moments just like ground yourself and be like, okay.
I also think it's
What's
important.
up?
I think it's important too to mention, like, we've been talking about like working in artistic fields a lot and working with men. But that's also never an excuse to be like treated badly or treated less than. And so it's like, if you are in a place, please never let working in the arts be like, well, it's because I'm here, and it's because I'm the woman here. It's like, if
Yeah.
that's the scenario, get out of there and go somewhere else where someone's going to appreciate you, because that's unacceptable. And that's not, despite the fact that that is real and that happens, it doesn't mean that you need to be there doing that and taking that. Like, that's,
Yeah.
that's still unacceptable.
Yeah.
You got to give yourself credit for, you
Totally.
gotta give yourself worth.
And totally. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So we got time for one last question. What does it mean to you to be fulfilled in a job or career? Is it having freedom, being well compensated, enjoying what you're doing on a day-to-day basis?
It's all three.
Yeah.
It's a balance. It's a compromise. You want all three, right? It's a compromise. Some things are a ways off, like maybe it's compensation, maybe it's I'm having enough to feed myself now and to support myself. It's not ideal. It's not, especially just graduating, like entry-level jobs are very difficult to get at all, let alone get like a well-paying entry-level position. It's very difficult. But it's like, if everything else is good for you, then like that's maybe worth waiting on. Like you have to figure out where you're going to compromise. But I mean, success to me is like, I'm making enough to support myself. I have a little extra. I have work-life balance, and I feel like I'm supported and valuable. Like that's success to me.
Yeah.
It's been interesting for me personally, because I used to work like 12-hour days every day, and like going to shows 4 days a week. It was really hard. I was really tired. It was exhausting. And then also working on Sad Summer, it was really hard. And I like reached my breaking point, and it was like right before COVID hit. And then like, lockdown happened and we were working from home. And it was like this reflective moment for myself where I was like, what do I want? Like, what makes me happy? Like, what makes me get up in the morning and be jazzed to go to work? Because like, to be completely honest, there was like kind of a long period of time where I'd wake up and go to work and be like, okay, like here I am.
Yeah.
And I think this like time made me realize that like I do love working in music, and I love working in live events. And it's like, how do I find that spark again? And I think like Sad Summer is such a huge part of that spark, because I love that thing with all of my heart. And like, that's a big thing I care about. So it's like prioritizing like those things. And it's like, it takes time to like really like hone that, like, what makes me get up in the morning and what makes me get excited for the day. And so I think like for me, that's like currently what I'm really focusing on, is like trying to really hone in on like what makes me happy in my job. It's like, I mean, obviously what Carrie said, it's like compensation is very important, but because it's tough. Because I think like in the arts too, I think I want to like chime in on this, that a lot of the time entry-level jobs and steps above that don't pay great. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask for what you want, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't stand up for yourself, because like in agency life, it's kind of this like unsaid thing that like you make what you make, you don't say anything, and that's it. Like, it's okay to ask. It's like okay to have those conversations. So I know I kind of went off on a tangent, but I just want to say those conversations are okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, know your worth. No matter where you are, what path you're going down, learn, ask questions, but like ultimately, like know your worth.
Yeah, that's true. Well, both your answers were great. I mean, everyone has their own measures of success, what that is to them. But just to close everything off, I want to say thank you guys for being here and for telling us your stories and everything.
Of course.
And then just something for everyone else. Is there anywhere that they can find people can find you on social media, and then we can just include it in the chat?
I got some great content. If you like Guy Fieri and Dunkaroos, I'm your gal.
They definitely don't know what Dunkaroos are, but
I hope you do. I don't want to feel old.
Give them your socials, Blair.
Yeah, it's I'll put it in the chat. It's with 2 R's at the end, Carrie, right? Right? Is it bad that I don't even know I just sent that. I don't even know how to use Zoom, everybody. I'm sorry.
You're good. You're good.
I'll put mine in here too. This is my my Instagram. I think it's
now
private, but just add me and I'll
that's it.
I'll add you.
There you go.
There we go. And also ask me any questions if you ever have anything, or I'm an open book. So
totally same.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for everyone, thank you for joining us this is the second event in the Pathway Speaker Series. So thank you everyone for coming. I'm sorry if we couldn't get to your question, but come next time, meet new people, and you're gonna learn some more things. But yeah, thank you so much. Everyone keep a watch out for the calendar to see if there are any more events. And just thank you all for being here.
Bye, everyone.